Russia believed the pressure campaign against Ukraine would finally break Kiev's resistance. For days, waves of drones and missiles crossed Ukrainian skies. Cities across the country faced renewed strikes. Energy infrastructure was damaged. Railway hubs were targeted. Residential districts were shaken by explosions deep into the night. But while the Kremlin expected fear and exhaustion inside Ukraine, something very different was already happening behind the scenes. Ukraine was preparing one of its largest long-range drone responses of the war. And this time, the message was not aimed at the front line. It was aimed directly at Russia's strategic heart, because according to multiple open-source reports and regional footage, massive drone activity was soon detected across several Russian regions simultaneously. Moscow, Ryazan, Rostov, Nizhny Novgorod. Industrial zones, energy facilities, logistics hubs, and military-linked infrastructure suddenly faced a wave of coordinated pressure, unlike anything seen earlier in the conflict. And for ordinary Russians watching explosions light up the night sky near the capital, the war no longer felt distant. It felt close. Very close. But to understand why these strikes mattered so much, we first need to understand what changed in the battlefield equation during 2026. Over the last year, Ukraine's military strategy has evolved dramatically. Instead of focusing only on frontline attrition, Ukrainian planners increasingly shifted toward what analysts describe as deep logistics disruption. The objective is simple. Not necessarily to destroy every military unit directly, but to slowly paralyze the systems keeping those units operational. Fuel, railways, ammunition supply routes, air defense coverage, industrial repair facilities, drone production networks. Every modern army depends on these systems to survive prolonged warfare. And according to several military assessments, Ukraine has increasingly focused its long-range drone operations on precisely these vulnerable points. This is where the battlefield began changing. Because while trenches dominate headlines, wars are often decided far behind the front. And that reality may now be catching up with Moscow. On the night of the large-scale drone operation, residents across multiple Russian regions reported air defense activity, explosions, and temporary infrastructure shutdowns. Russian authorities acknowledged drone interceptions in several areas. Air traffic disruptions were reported near Moscow airports. Industrial fires were recorded in some regions after debris impacts and emergency incidents. Videos circulating online appeared to show flashes in the sky as air defense systems engaged incoming targets. For the Kremlin, the psychological dimension may have been just as important as the physical damage itself. For years, Moscow maintained the image that Russia's interior remained secure and untouchable. But repeated long-range drone incidents are increasingly challenging that perception. And nowhere carries greater symbolic importance than Moscow itself. The Russian capital is surrounded by one of the densest air defense networks in the country. Multiple layered systems protect key government and military zones. Yet, despite those defenses, drone alerts and emergency responses continue appearing closer to the capital than many Russians once believed possible. That psychological pressure matters. Because modern warfare is no longer fought only with tanks and artillery. It is also fought through uncertainty, economic strain, disruption, fear, and exhaustion. At the same time, Ukraine's expanding drone campaign appears increasingly focused on Russia's logistical backbone. Energy infrastructure remains one of the most strategically sensitive sectors. Oil refineries, fuel depots, and industrial processing facilities play a critical role in sustaining both economic revenue and military operations. When refinery operations slow down, transportation systems become strained. Repair timelines expand. Fuel distribution becomes more difficult. Military logistics become more expensive. And according to several economic analysts, repeated disruptions may gradually increase pressure on Russia's wartime industrial system. But energy facilities are only part of the equation. Rail infrastructure has also become a major focus. Across modern warfare, railways remain essential for transporting fuel, heavy equipment, ammunition, and personnel over long distances. Disruptions at railway hubs can slow deployment schedules dramatically. That is why transportation corridors inside Russia and occupied territories are now under growing surveillance pressure from reconnaissance drones and long-range strike systems. Some Russian military bloggers have openly expressed concern about increasing drone activity over supply roads near occupied regions. According to battlefield footage and OSINT monitoring groups, FPV drone operations are increasingly being used not only against armored vehicles, but also against logistical movement itself. Fuel trucks, support convoys, supply vehicles. The battlefield is evolving into a constant surveillance environment. And once logistics become visible, they become vulnerable. This is one reason analysts believe drone warfare is reshaping military doctrine globally. Small, relatively inexpensive systems are now capable of threatening infrastructure worth billions. A single drone strike may not decide a war, but hundreds of coordinated disruptions over time can slowly erode operational capacity. That erosion is becoming increasingly visible across several sectors. At the same time, Ukraine continues expanding its domestic drone production capabilities. Military analysts note that Ukrainian forces are adapting quickly with longer-range systems, AI-assisted targeting technologies, and decentralized drone coordination networks. Counter-drone innovation is also accelerating. Units on both sides are now experimenting with electronic warfare systems, interceptor drones, signal disruption tools, and mobile air defense tactics. The technological race is moving incredibly fast, and every month the battlefield looks different from the month before. Meanwhile, the broader strategic impact inside Russia may be becoming harder to ignore. Economic pressure is rising, security costs are expanding, air defense resources are increasingly stretched across wider territories. Industrial facilities require additional protection, and repeated emergency incidents create uncertainty among civilians far from the front lines. For ordinary Russians, the war is gradually becoming more visible in daily life. Air raid alerts, temporary airport closures, industrial fires, drone warnings, road disruptions. These developments slowly weaken the image of total control projected by the Kremlin. And perception matters enormously during prolonged wars, because once a population begins questioning whether the state can fully guarantee stability, political pressure quietly begins building beneath the surface. This may be one of Ukraine's long-term strategic goals. The latest wave of long-range drone pressure may not have changed the map overnight, but it may be contributing to something potentially much larger, a slow expansion of vulnerability deep inside Russia itself. And if that trend continues, the strategic consequences could become increasingly difficult for Moscow to contain. So now the question is no longer whether drone warfare is changing this conflict. The real question is, how far can this transformation go before the balance of the war itself begins to shift? What do you think? Can long-range drone warfare truly reshape modern military strategy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy in-depth geopolitical and military analysis, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest coverage.